Hi guys. Hello. Okay, so welcome to 12.5 circles. We're going to be talking about the equation of a circle. And it's going to look super complicated. And what I would do is I would have it written down somewhere so that you have it as a reference. So the equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r, your radius, squared. So HK, some of you might remember from Algebra 1, like vertex form, which we'll be getting into parabolas next week. So H and K is the center, the exact center of your circle. And R, like I said, is the radius. Okay, so it's giving us some centers, some radius, some diameters, all sorts of stuff. And we're going to go ahead and fill it into the equation. So our center is a positive 5 and a positive 3. However, when we write it in the equation, we're always going to write the opposite of what they give us. So instead of writing a positive 5, I'm going to say x minus 5 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals my radius. But remember, I have to square my radius. So 2 squared equals 4. So a couple things to point out. Right here, I had a positive 5, but remember, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be the opposite. So let's make a little note of that. The center will always be the opposite of the numbers you see in the equation. And numbers, I mean HK, the numbers you see in the equation. All right, so notice right here and right here. Okay, so this time we have our center is a -1, which it's going to be x plus 1, right? The opposite squared plus y minus 7, the opposite squared. And your radius, well, 14 squared is going to be 196. Okie doke. Well, let's go ahead and try with this next one. Oh, they're both negative, so I know my h and k are going to be positive. I'm going to have x plus 2 squared plus y plus 11 squared. And this time it gives me my diameter. Well, remember your radius is always equal to half your diameter. So my radius would be equal to 9. My radius squared is 81. So don't let them trick you here. Okay, again, I have a center of 0. So I don't need to write x minus 0. I'm just going to simply write x squared, right? Because I'm not taking or adding anything to it. And then plus y minus 9 squared. And then the diameter again. So 32 divided by 2 is 16. So my radius is equal to 16. And when I square that, I get 256. Okay, well, now we have a center of -4 and 0. So I'm going to say x plus 4 squared plus, well, I have a 0 here, so just y squared equals, well, my radius is rad 47. Remember that rad 47 times rad 47 is simply 47. So equals, whoops, don't know why I went to write 42, but 47. Okay, and now we've got to go ahead and try number 6. If you want to pause me and try it by yourself, you are more than welcome to. If not, I'm just going to do this one. Okay, so I am going to do x minus 15 squared plus y plus 6 squared, and then my radius, 158. So if I square rad 158, I end up with just 158. Okay, now given the graph. So the first thing I want to do is locate my center. Well, if I count over 1, 2, 3 places, it looks like I am to the left 3 and then down about 2. And then from the center, I'm going to figure out what my radius is. I'm going to go ahead and count over. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My radius is about 5 places away. So now I'm going to go ahead and write my equation. X minus 3, right? The opposite of a positive 3 is a negative squared, plus y plus 2 squared equals my radius, which was 5 squared. So 25. Okay, well this time, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. They're giving me my center, right? And they're giving me a point on the circle, which will give me my radius. But in order to find my radius, I've got to use the distance formula. So I'll go ahead and rewrite that over here. For those of you that need a refresher. And remember, that's the big one with the square root. So the distance formula is x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. All right, so remember, x1, y1, x2, y2. And we're going to find our radius. So our radius is equal to the square root of 9 minus 7 squared plus 10 minus 4 squared. All right, I'll simplify. So I will get 2 squared plus 6 squared, which is equal to about rad 40. So I now know that my radius is equal to rad 40. And I know my center. They already gave me the center, so I can go ahead and plug that into the equation. I'm going to go ahead and do x minus 9 squared, because they gave me a positive 9, I'm putting in a negative 9, plus y minus 10 squared, equals my radius squared. So rad 40 times rad 40, and that would give me 40. And so there's my equation of that circle. Now, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing again. So we've got to find the distance between the center and a point on a circle. Okay, so again, we're going to find our radius by using the distance formula. That's going to be the square root of 1 minus negative 7 squared plus negative 5 minus negative 13 squared. All right, remember, when we have two negatives side by side like this, they become a positive. So what that ends up simplifying down to is 8 squared plus 8 squared, which is 64 plus 64, which your radius is then equal to rad 128. Okay, well, I know my radius and I know my center, so I can go ahead and write the equation of a circle. I will say x minus 1 squared plus y plus 5 squared equals my radius squared, 128. Okay. I want you guys to go ahead and try these. Number 10, let's let it get a little bit more focused here if it can. there we go. Number 10 and number 11. So pause me and try them. Again, you're going to use the distance formula. And I'm going to go ahead and write the answer just so you can check to make sure you got it right. You should have x minus 2 squared plus y plus 6 squared equals 257. And for this next one, you should have x plus 2 squared plus y squared equals 65. Okay, so now, whoops, let me box that just so I'm consistent. We are going to move on to something a little bit different. It says my center is -1 and 4, and my circumference is 6 pi. So if my circumference is 6 pi, then I know that my diameter is equal to 6 and my radius is equal to 3, right? Because your radius is always half your diameter. Radius equals diameter divided by 2. So with that information, I can go ahead and plug it into the equation of a circle. I'm going to go ahead and say x plus 1, right? Because it was a -1 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals my radius, which was 3 squared, which will be 9. Okay, so if my circumference here is 17 pi, I know that my diameter is equal to 17 and my radius would be equal to 8.5. So I'll just go ahead and plug that into my equation of a circle. X minus 9 squared plus y minus 12 squared equals 8.5 squared, which is 72.25. And that's my equation of a circle. Here, it gets a little different. So remember, the area is equal to pi times your radius squared. Well, if I know that my radius is 16, I'm just going to take the square root of 16 and I'll get 4. So I know that my radius is equal to 4. And now taking my center, I can just plug it into the equation. So x plus 8 squared minus y plus 11 squared equals 16. Boom. All right, again, I'm just going to take the square root of 361 because they're giving me area. So always make sure that you look what they're giving you. Are they giving you area or circumference? And the square root of 361 is, well, hold on one sec here. Let me get my calculator out. Square root 361 is 19. So my radius is equal to 19. But some of you might be figuring out, hey, I don't need to take the square root because it's squared down here anyways. You are absolutely correct. So I'm going to have x minus 2 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals, well, 19 squared, because my radius is squared, equals 361. All right. And then going backwards. Hopefully this isn't too redundant for you guys, but going backwards. Okay, well, my center is always the opposite, right? So it's going to be a positive 5 and a positive 1. And my radius, I just take the square root of it, and the square root of 64 is 8. All right, well, same thing for number 17. I take the opposite of what they've given me, so a -7 and a positive 2. And then I take the square root of 324, and that gives me 36. Oh, shoot. Wait, hold on. Square root of 324 equals 18. Is equal to 18. And the reason I got 36 was because it's asking for my diameter. I'm so glad I made this bubble, so hopefully it stands out to you. And your diameter is your radius times 2, which is where I got 36. So tricky, huh? All right, so my center, well, there's just an x squared there, so we know that first bit is going to be 0. The opposite of a positive 10 is a negative 10. And then for my radius, I'm going to take the square root. So square root of 42.25. And I get about 6.5. So I'm going to get my radius equals 6.5. But remember, for your diameter, you have to double it. So 6.5 times 2 is 13. Your diameter is 13. Okay, and here I'm going to go ahead and get my center as a positive 6 and a negative 11. And for my radius, I'm going to take the square root of 58 because it's asking for my radius again. So 58, hit enter. Oop, it's just 58. So my radius is simply rad 58. All right, number 20, challenge. Write the equation of a circle with the diameter endpoints, and remember the diameter cuts through the center, of -4, 1, and -10, 9. So if it has endpoints of a diameter, that crosses through the center. So if we use the midpoint formula to give us the center, we can find the center of our circle. So we are going to go ahead and take, if you guys remember the midpoint, it's x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. All right, so let's go ahead and plug those points in. We're going to do -14 plus a -10 all over 2, and a +1 and a 9 all over 2, which when we go ahead and plug those in, we will get a -12 and a +5. So this is our center. Now we need to figure out what our radius is. So using our center and either one of these points, we're going to go ahead and figure out what our radius is. So for our radius, we're going to use the distance formula. I am going to use this point right here and my center. So I'm going to do the square root of -14 plus 12 squared plus 1 minus 5 squared, which will give me -2 squared plus -4 squared, all under a radical. When I simplify that, I get 4 plus 16. When I simplify that, I get 20. So I know that my radius equals rad 20. Well, I have my center and I have my radius, so I'm going to plug that into the equation of a circle. X plus 12 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 20. And that's your answer, and that is your notes for today. All right, guys, have a good one. Come to office hours or reach out if you guys have questions, please. Hope you're doing well. Bye.